Fam Radio in studio podcast. Today, we have a very special guest in the house. For those of you who don't know, I am Matisse, SMG Solo Music Group. I'm joined by my partner in crime, as with every episode.
Mr. First Fam Chill, man, in the building.
What's up now? Again, we got a special one today, ladies and gentlemen. We are proud, privileged, and honored, if I may say so myself. We're joined by hip hop media royalty in the building today. Give a round of applause for the one, the only author, radio personality. You know him from Unique Access. You know him from Digital Soapbox Network. If you've been around hip hop for a while, the Source, Hip Hop DX, and you name it, he's probably touched it. Welcome to our show, the one and only Soren.
Thank y'all for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the show, man.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. For people who may not be familiar with you, just briefly, give them a brief rundown of your resume before we get into the meat and potatoes of certain things.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Maryland. Fell in love with rap when I was 10 years old. And, you know, being able to listen to radio in D.C. and Baltimore helped me a lot because I had two different channels or radio to pull from. And then I got into writing when I was in college because I went to Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. And my school newspaper, the student newspaper at Xavier, the Xavier Newswire, didn't write about rap, or at least not when I was looking at it. So I just asked them if I could write about it. I didn't know how anything worked in writing or the music industry or newspapers, but they let me. So I reviewed Edo G and the Bulldogs, their second album, the Roxbury album. And then from there, man, you know, I just went, you know, put the pedal to the metal, kept pushing hard and got lucky and just kept grinding. And I got my first national stuff published when I was 19. And then, you know, after college, I got a job at Rap Pages where Alan Gordon hired me. So I moved from Maryland to Los Angeles. And then from there, man, I've just been fortunate to live my dream at a high level, and I'm always trying to keep elevating with it. And, you know, I got some books out now, lots of books out now, working on film, television, more books, and Unique Access Entertainment is my YouTube channel where I interview a lot of artists and producers and actors and different things. So I'm just trying to keep all that stuff moving to the best of my ability, man, and trying to be the best, you know?
Understood. Definitely understand. Now, growing up in Baltimore, you said you got into in the Maryland area, rather, and people think Baltimore primarily when you say Maryland at first.
Yeah.
And shouts out to everyone in Baltimore. But you said you got into hip hop when you were 10. How did that come about? Was it something being constantly played in the house? Was it something you're hearing as you're outside, you know, back and forth to the mall, to school? How did that love affair start? How were you really introduced to the culture and the music of hip hop?
Well, where I grew up in Maryland is right in between Baltimore and DC. It's a little city called Gambrills. And rap, you know, people listened to it and stuff when I was a kid, but it wasn't the main thing. So I heard songs, but I heard them here and there because my parents, mainly my dad listened to a lot of music. He listened to like the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, classic rock stuff. He sprinkled in some Stevie Wonder and sprinkled in a little Bob Marley, but he was really Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan. Okay. So, but I'd hear this stuff being around my friends, and where I grew up was very racially diverse. So, you know, we had a lot of different nationalities, a lot of Black people, of course. And I just asked one of my friends one day, I was like, yo, what do you know about this rap stuff? What is it? Or he's like, man, there's a bunch of rap. I was like, what are you talking about? So he made me a tape, man, and it had Day to Day Nightmares on there. It had LL Cool J, I Need a Beat on there. It had Roxanne, UTFO on there. Had Big Mouth by Houdini.
Mixtape.
Yeah, it was an early mixtape. Yeah. So he made it for me, and that just changed my life, man, because right there, another song on there was Curtis Blow Basketball. So I grew up playing basketball. So I identified with that. I identified with Big Mouth by Houdini and You Talk Too Much, Run DMC. I identified trying to get a girl with UTFO and Roxanne. You know, so all these things. And then I just loved the sound of scratching. So I loved the show was on there with Dougie Fresh and MC Ricky D and the Get Fresh crew. So it was a lot of scratching, which I loved. I didn't understand what scratching was,
Right.
but I liked the sound of it. And then the stories with Nightmares with Dana Dane, with the show, Dougie Fresh, with Roxanne, UTFO, Basketball, Curtis Blow. These were things I could identify with, and then a song like Freaks Come Out at Night by Houdini was also on there.
That's my favorite.
I could imagine. I couldn't identify with that just yet, but I could imagine that. And that, growing up with the rock that my white friends were listening to at the time, that was about going to a lot of parties and girls, and like that stuff I couldn't identify with really. But basketball I could identify with. Hearing people talk too much I could identify with. So I liked the sound of it, and I didn't understand until a little bit later. I really love drums and percussion, so that really. So it was all these factors played into it, and then when I was 10 and that happened, it just okay, this is me. So I just fell in love with it that day, man, and basically been trying to get as much, learn as much, and do as much as I could with rap ever since that day. Shout out Tom Early back in when I was 10 to give me that tape, man. That changed my life.
Wow. So even back then, did you have kind of an inkling that young that this is going to be something that's going to be life changing for me, that I'm going to have a commitment, I'm going to indulge myself in and just enjoy doing as far as the culture?
Absolutely. Like once I got that tape and I started talking to more of my friends about it, then I realized like, oh, this is a lot bigger than you understand. You know, even already, it was still tiny compared to what it is now. Rap business and hip hop culture has grown exponentially since then. But I knew right away I wanted to figure out how to be involved in it, you know, whether that was in whatever capacity, but I never imagined myself as an artist. I didn't, there weren't that many videos, and I never seen a rap video probably, and we didn't have MTV, my parents at the time. So I didn't even understand a lot of the artists were Black at the time.
Right.
So the racial element to me didn't even matter. And then as you guys know, with Rappers Delight, they were like red, black, brown, yellow. They were saying everybody was welcome. So I didn't understand or appreciate that as a little kid. And thankfully my parents taught me to treat everybody with love and respect. And my neighbors were Black. I had lots of friends that were Black and had Asian people going to my school. It was just, I just didn't understand that until probably 1 or 2 years after I got this tape. Then I started understanding racism and started putting things together a little more because of people getting older around me and all that. But I didn't understand a lot of this, but I also didn't understand that people like Dana Dane and LL Cool J and Slick Rick, these guys were 5 years older than me. So I was like, man, I couldn't write a rhyme like the show or Nightmares, but I'm 10 years old and they're like 20. So I was just figuring out like a different way to be involved. So then when much later when writing it itself, that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is something maybe I could do to be involved. And I get to talk to these guys that I admired and idolized and thought the world of, and the women too. So that was it.
Okay. Now, I want to step back to something you just mentioned as far as being able to see the difference and recognize the difference as you grew up in the cultures and the ethnicities that are involved in hip hop. As someone who, and I've been around this business from the time when there were no stations playing it, there wasn't a format before Mr. Magic even got on the air. Yes, I'm dating and aging myself, and I'm proud of that. But as someone who is of a culture that's other than African American, when you see all the controversial moments that you've been in the industry through in regards to race, the whole thing with the Source and the beef with Benzino and Eminem, and so many other things, people who are not African American referred to as culture vultures, but they are working, they're providing, they're contributing to this culture. And people in your position, this is what you've been doing your whole life. How do you feel when moments like that were happening? Did it make you feel like you made a mistake in choosing this as a career, or was it something you just let roll off your back and say, you know what, that doesn't directly pertain to me, irregardless of my culture, my ethnicity? I'm here now. So I'll let everybody else deal with that. Did that make you feel like the odd man out when any of those type of events are going on or have gone on?
Not really,
Mm-hmm.
because ever since I was a little kid, I grew up around and with Black people. So
Right.
it wasn't that I, like a vulture, swoops in when something is already existing and dying. I was
Right.
part of it. I was part of it just because I loved it. So
Right.
I, in a lot of senses, agree with most of the people that are labeled as that, because I see it and I've
Mhm.
seen it myself.
Right.
And I know that a lot of it, not all of it, of course, but a lot of it is true, or a lot of the people that get attacked probably should be attacked because they're not trying to uplift, better, promote, and discuss and celebrate the culture from a perspective of love. I don't know their agendas, but I got into this because I love it. I got into this because I thought it was phenomenal. I got into it because I respect it.
Right.
So, you know, on my unique access entertainment, sometimes I'll get some of those people chirping in the comments or something, but I've built up enough following that people I don't know, you know, these are people that criticize me don't know me, but then the people in the comments defend me that I also don't know.
Right.
And that's because however and whenever people get exposed to my work, it's they can tell. Like when I interview somebody, one, people always say like, oh, you know a lot, or man, I never heard that, or oh man. But that's because since I was 10, I've been studying this, living it, loving it.
Yep.
And
I feel that energy from you too, because like just listening, you know, and this is our first time, you know what I mean, like, you know, talking with you, but it's, you could kind of tell, you know what I'm saying, like just right off bat, you know what I mean, like the energy, you know what I mean, I feel your energy, you know.
Well,
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna say this. I'm sorry, Soren, go ahead.
No, but that's the thing. Like growing up, obviously I was an anomaly and I still am. But in Maryland, even when I would go to basketball camp in DC or in Baltimore or in a part of Maryland I didn't grow up in,
right,
I was clearly one of the few white dudes there, period, to start. But then when I would talk to them about rap or about go-go or whatever, they would just look at me as one of the dudes now because I'm talking to them about, I either know more than them or they're just like, oh man, how did you know that? Or like, really? You know, this album coming from LL Cool J? I'm like, that's my favorite song, you know? Like, so, you know, and this is when I'm a teenager, a little kid, or even before I was a teenager. So that showed me also that, again, where I grew up and my friends, Black, white, or otherwise, just knew I loved rap. It wasn't strange because they knew me from 10 up that I love rap and that's what I was about. So it was never like that. And, you know, I also was in a documentary with Bill Duke directed. He's a friend of mine called Dark Girls. And in the movie, you know, it talks about when I was a kid, you know, I asked my dad because I early on was attracted to girls of all races, including Black women. I just asked my dad, I said, Dad, because I knew I was attracted to him. So I just asked my dad, I said, you know, Dad, would you ever mind if I married a Black woman? Because at this point I could tell, not in my house, thankfully, but I could tell outside there was this thing. So I asked my dad, and I don't know how old I was in elementary school, I know that. And he was like, Soren, as long as she's smart and she looks good, I don't care what she is. So,
you gotta look good though, right?
Hey, look, I'm a father. I feel the same way.
But that just let me know, like, you know, and ever since I was a kid, Black girls were attracted to me just as I was to them. So it wasn't until I got to Xavier in Cincinnati where I was totally removed from the culture I grew up in and around, where that's where I really experienced, like, who is this dude? The white people thought I was trying to be Black, and the Black people thought I was an authentic fake white boy or whatever. So that was really weird. And I was really isolated there because I was such fish out of water to both sides of the white and Black worlds that was unusual and something I'd never experienced. So that was weird, but it made me think of you know, Mike Jones and stuff, because They knew I love rap, but then when they literally, I wouldn't talk about it, but they'd see in college I started writing for The Source and Rap Pages and all these magazines. So then people would come up to me in the lunchroom like, "Hey man, I didn't know you really wrote for The Source." Like, yeah,
yeah, I do. That's my article on page 36 with so and so and so on the cover. That's me.
Exactly. Like, oh, you really did interview 8-Ball and MJG? I was like, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So
crazy. I identify with that though, because my situation was similar as far as just music in the culture of hip hop, but music in general, because that's the beat of my heart. It's like, I love music. I don't care what it is, who it is. If it's good, it's good. Coming up in the culture of hip hop, I kind of, acclimated to that because that was all around me, but I was also looking for things outside of what was around me. And the one thing I'll say to you, and I'll tip my hat to you, is I became aware of you over 20 plus years ago, just from being an avid reader of The Source and so many other publications. Yeah. And then I became a magazine editor, True Magazine, out in California. We were bi-monthly. And the 5 years I spent there, and you would hear different things about different people in the business. You know that like I do. But I can honestly say, no matter what type of room I was in, when it came to journalism, you always spoken of with integrity. You was always spoken of with honesty and truth and admiration to a degree. Never heard a bad word in this industry about you. I'm not even half as known as you are. And I'm sure there are people that'll say a lot of shitty things about me, but that is what it is. But salute to you. I just wanted to let you know that, though.
Thank you.
You get a lot of respect. And that's one of the reasons why it was important for me to just get you on this show. And it's like kind of another one off my bucket list while doing the show. Let's talk about The Source really quick. What was your time? Did you spend like cognitive time there, or was it a situation where you just contribute and your articles were published? Like, were you in the building? Were you at the staff meetings, putting the plans together, etc.?
Well, it's two different scenarios. One, when I started writing for The Source in college in '95, I got that through in Cincinnati when I was at Xavier University. I got that through DJ ICD, who knew Usman Sam, who worked street promotions. Okay. And I brought him my articles, and then he faxed them. This is how old it was. He faxed them over to The Source. And The Source is like, Usman read my articles because I printed them out and handed him a folder, and he just opened it and looked at them. He's like, yeah, we need you writing for The Source. So then he got me with Dario Strange, who was my first editor there. Okay. And I started writing for them in college. So I was doing all this over fax initially, and then a little bit later email. But in college, I was just freelancing. So they'd be like, hey, do you want to interview Chino Excel? Do you want to interview 8-Ball and MJG? Do you want to interview Val Bacardi? So I did these interviews, but that was all over the phone. I wasn't in person. So then I continued doing that after I graduated. So then by the time I got my job at Rap Pages in the beginning of '98, so then I had to stop writing for The Source. So then after Rap Pages shut down temporarily, then I resumed writing for The Source in 2000. And then in 2003, they hired me as a senior editor. And then I did senior editor, executive editor, some of the higher positions at The Source. But I was living in Los Angeles the whole time. They would fly me to New York, usually about once a month. But 75 to 85% of the time I was in LA working from the house. So I'd be in some, but not all of those meetings. And the ones I was in, again, 75 to 85% of them was over the phone or whatever. So I was there in the office from 2003 to 2009-ish a lot, but not, or sometimes, but I never was in there every day.
What was, even the times you were there, what was the experience like working with Benzino and Dave during the times that you were, at the publication itself?
Well, I've had very little experience with Benzino. I only met him a couple times, but every time I met him, he was super cool. Right. And he knew who I was. And he was like, oh, you're the dude from Maryland? And I was like, yeah, man. And then he's like, and then he said something to me like he knew who I was and he knew I liked go-go. He's like, yeah, you and Dave, man, you guys are both from that area and both like go-go music. And I was like, yeah, I love it. So Benzino, I only had 2 or 3 times I met him, and he was always very nice and super cool to me. Dave, I work with much more. over the years, but even that wasn't much because I really dealt with the editors.
Okay.
So Dave, I would see when I go to parties in New York or something, I'd see Dave and then I'd see him in the office, but it was more like, hey, Soren, keep up the good work. Hey, Soren, I like that article. It was never like, hey, Soren, I need you to do these 7 things, because I would get that from the editor-in-chief or whatever. It was never Dave really saying, hey, I want you to do A, B, and C, or even Benzino. It was more of like a casual interaction with those guys.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked that question because I know it was some tense times during certain periods during their administration, if you will.
Well, I wasn't. Yeah, I was aware of all those things, but I never experienced it firsthand.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you this, and again, this is just my opinion. I saw a shift in the culture, and there have been several, but the one I wanted to speak with you briefly about, with your background in the media, everything that you've experienced, if you go back to when the South first started that initial rise, and you kind of saw the paradigm like shifting, and there was this alleged East-West beef around that time, a little bit before that. But the whole dichotomy of the confusion and the conflict, and you're from here, so we're not playing that, or this artist is from there, so we're not listening to that. But at the same time, you've got artists like a E40, like a Master P, like a 8-Ball MJG, Tony Draper doing what he's doing in the Suave House, Lil J doing what he's doing in Rap A Lot. We started to see outside of the Northeast, the business take a different tone, more so, quote unquote, in favor of the label owners and independent record labels. Do you think that during that time, with the tension that mounted and what became, Biggie and Pac and so many other situations that weren't that severe, do you think the media part in that? And if you think that in a negative way, could they have done something different to ease some of that tension?
Absolutely, the media played a part in that, and a negative part. And I do talk about that in detail in my book, The History of Gangsta Rap. If y'all don't have it, please go pick it up. It's available basically anywhere you buy books. But I talk about that a lot in my book, The History of Gangsta Rap, because in my opinion, and I talk about detail in the book, the media, specifically the rap media, the mainstream media is going to do what they do, and they don't care about rap, and they don't care about rappers, they don't care about the businessmen, they don't care. So you kind of just, they never have, in my opinion, they never will, and that's not really about rap. That's, they're just being racist or what, however you want to label that, they don't care. But the rap community, the problem that the rap community, in my opinion, and the journalists have had is that there's rarely journalism in rap journalism. So, when you have a situation where an artist disses one artist and then you wait till the next issue to put out the response instead of doing it journalistically, whereas if artist A disses artist B, you try to get that in the same article or the response or whatever. But what the rap media did, which was good for their business and bad for the music and bad for the opinion, they spread it out so that if Biggie was on March, Tupac was on April, and then Bad Boy was in May. So they're fanning the flames. And back then there wasn't the internet, so you couldn't, it wasn't a daily thing. And those magazines would sit, you guys both know, the magazine would be there for a month.
Yeah.
So
the next issue. So
you would not only have a chance to read it, but you'd have a chance to talk about it with your friends because it was there. And there was no other, they might do an interview on Rap City, on UMTV Raps or something, but they weren't being interviewed by TMZ or posted on Instagram or doing these things. So you had one article, maybe two, sat there for a month. So people would be analyzing, you guys know this, they'd be analyzing what said or what Biggie said or what Puffy said or what Suge said or whatever, and they'd be sitting there. And that would just kind of, I can't wait to see what they say next month. And then they would. But they didn't do it journalistically. And to me, that's very irresponsible because you are, if the rap magazines allegedly are here to showcase the music and the culture,
Right.
then you need to do it at the best of your ability, which means journalistically.
Mhm.
And they didn't do that.
Right.
And that to me was very disheartening as somebody who is and aspires to be a great journalist. I am a journalist and I aspire to be a great one. That's irresponsible. Even if you put in an article like, you know, Biggie denied to a comment, at least you attempted to get there. But the articles would always be like, this person said, this person said, this person said. And it would also be like, they'd be accusing each other of crimes and like, they'd be slanderous, libelous. This is just irresponsible. And like, that's terrible.
Right.
So that's something that I always try to avoid doing. And if I did ever write an article that was, like for instance, I did an article on SIBO when he was getting arrested and got arrested for his lyrics. And this was in 1997. And when I interviewed SIBO, you know, I got his side of the story, but then I also went in and talked to people to get the legal side of what was going on. Like I talked to lawyers, I talked to that person. And when I did an article for Savoy magazine, and it was talking about Tupac getting shot, I talked to a ballistics person. Because, okay, if this person really did put a gun out the window and this and that, could Suge really have not got hit? Is that feasible?
Right.
That's a good question I would have asked.
So I got a ballistics expert to talk about that because I'm thinking of it journalistically. Because Suge or whoever is saying whatever they're saying, you know, Tupac is dead and Biggie are dead. We can't ask them their opinion now. But we could ask somebody that's expert on guns and forensics and ballistics. So I did that.
Right.
And that, I think, and hopefully that is why my articles, I think, are a little different when I do those type of articles. Got to do it from a balanced thing. Like when I interviewed, another example is I did in 2003, I did one of the 2 articles with R. Kelly at the time. So I told them before I interviewed him, and it was me and Ed Gordon from BET, the only people that interviewed him at this time, because he was on trial at the time, or the case was active.
Right.
And I told him, I said, look, y'all vet me, look me up, do whatever you want to do, but I'm not here to make him look bad or good. I'm here to interview him and get his side of the story. Yep. I said, so I'm just letting y'all know, I am going to ask other people about their opinion about him, but I'm also not doing that to make him look bad. I'm doing it to get other sides of the story. So when I interviewed him, you know, then I talked to Isaac Perry, a music journalist based in Chicago, and his thoughts. I talked to people on the radio. I talked to people that were affiliated with some of the girls. So we got to tell his side of the story, and then it was journalistically balanced to where if you read the article objectively, you would never say he's trying to make R. Kelly look bad or trying to make R. Kelly look good. I just said what R. Kelly said, the facts of there, and what other people said. Right. So that's what I always try to do. And I think, fortunately, generally speaking, that really, for the most part, in a lot of the rap media, which is very disappointing, man, because it should have been, and it wasn't.
Right. And I totally understand that. And I asked that question. I kind of have the feeling that even with the DJs on their personalities, it's the same thing. I listen to hundreds of radio stations, large formats, where the person behind the mic questioning, even in the day and age of Google, they still seem to me like they're sort of uninformed. They'll ask an artist a certain question, particularly artists that may have history and are still, you know, very much so important to the business, and then shift changers and people in the culture that move the culture. But the information, a lot of times, certain questions we know are prepared, but I don't see a lot of personalities that I think would be able to sit down like you or even myself and just talk about the background of certain artists, their, you know, histories, what they've contributed, who they've worked with, where do you see them going? You know, it's like, it's this format, a cold format almost, of certain questions that you're going to ask, But even with all the information at your fingertips, you're not really familiar. If you're coming into a new area, get familiar with the local musicians in that area. Find out who the movers and shakers are. Did it ever come from that area? Why not? And I don't see that kind of engagement to me. It's almost like, here's the outline. You've got so and so and so coming in. This is what you're going to ask, and then that's going to be it. It's like, I don't set engagement. And maybe it's just the way I'm looking at it. You know what I mean?
No, but I think that it's an indictment on what's going on with rap interviews, but it's also a bigger indictment on our society, to where people, they don't care. They want to get somebody to say something salacious. To me, when I talk to somebody, like I just did an interview with DJ Wiz from Kid and Play that's on my Unique Access Entertainment channel, just went up. And when I talked to him, I know him. I know a lot of the dudes from that area. So when I was talking to Kwame, or when I talked to DJ Wiz, one thing I asked DJ Wiz about was like, dude, you grew up within a few block radius of Kool G Rap, Eric B, Kid and Play, Herbie Lovebug. This is all like walking distance, like right around. So I had to talk about that, because to me, that's crazy. Like, you don't look at Kid and Play and Kool G Rap and Eric B and Rakim in the same way. Those are three totally different types of artists. But they're all from and Kwame was right there too. That's 4 different types of artists that are within a 4 or 5 block radius. And that's crazy. So that's the type of question that I find interesting, compelling, that I want to talk about, because that shows, like, man, in East Elmhurst, Queens, this little section of Queens, man, it delivered us some of the best of all time. And that's crazy that they all live right there. It's just like Compton. How many people are from Compton? Like, that is just astounding. And it's a tiny, 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 tiny little city.
We got some of the best talent in the world.
But that's the difference. Like you guys are saying, it's like, when you realize there's so much, like, for instance, with Kwame. I'd known Kwame, but I never really got to interview him at length. So the first time I interviewed him for Unique Access Entertainment, I usually had him for about an hour. I usually would do him in about an hour and chop him up. And then I was doing a podcast, and I was like, I looked at the clock, and it was 50 minutes in, and we were only in like 1988, 89. I was like, oh my God. Like, so I just said to him, thankfully I know him and we're friends, but I just said, hey man, you mind coming back? Because, I've barely scratched the surface, not only of your career, but the things I wanted to ask you about related to your career. He's like, no, of course. So thankfully, I'm friends with him, and he came back for part 2. But part 2, we only got a few extra years. That's like a few more years from there, because it's so much, and that's one artist. I could do that literally. You guys have followed my work. I can do that with literally hundreds of artists, thousands of artists, because that's what I've been studying since I'm 10. So
crazy. Now, let's get to the juicy stuff. You got 2 books out. I want to start with the first one. Okay, put that right in front of that camera.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, we've got
God the Greatness and the History of Gangster Rap.
There we go. Let's start with the history of gangster rap first.
All right.
The concept, the idea, it seems like it's a no-brainer, but at the time it wasn't something that you had a lot of authors actually putting out, as far as I know, or anything close to it. We have books about the industry, but I don't recall a book actually coming out that focused on that particular subgenre of the genre. So take us from the beginning with that. How did this come about?
Well, Schoolie D, who created gangster rap, is my favorite artist. So I've been loving and listening to gangster, what is now known as gangster rap. Back then it was reality rap or street reporting or hardcore music. But I've been listening to that since, almost as soon as I got into rap. So when I was 10, 11. So I've been listening to it my whole life. And I was always drawn to it because I felt gangster rap in particular provided a voice for the voiceless and highlighted some of these not only amazing stories, but very sad stories that are going on in America because of our social, racial, economic, inequities that
Mhm.
we have built into America. So I was doing a radio show with Exhibit on K-Day called Open
Mhm.
Bar Radio, and
Right.
George Hinojosa, who's Ice-T's manager, called me after one of the shows and was like, "Hey, Soren, I know you had some books out, but how come you're not writing the big ones? What's going on?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Look, George, I've always been wanting to do these books, and I've had some, as you know, George, I've had a few come out, but I always needed extra help because I've had a few that fell through with big artists or they didn't get to the finish line." So I said, "George, you work with Ice-T, man. If you want to help me, help me."
There you
so,
go.
so he's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" So we came up with 3 ideas,
Mhm.
and the history of gangster rap was the one that we mutually decided would be the first one we would try.
Mhm.
And then thankfully, Abrams Books in New York decided they wanted to do it. And
Okay.
I'm very fortunate that they wanted to do it. I did a proposal, which was pretty detailed, breaking down what the book would entail. And, Samantha over at Abrams Books, man, loved it. And
Mhm.
thankfully, I got the chance to do it. And then because what I wanted to do to make the book different was I interviewed the artists for 80 to 90% of what's in the book. I didn't pull these quotes and things from different sources. I interviewed more than 30 artists just for this book.
Right.
So when you see a MC Ren or Ice-T or a Schoolie D or a DOC or a DJ Quick or a MC8, I
Mhm.
interviewed them for this book. They're not
Mm.
interviews that I got from somewhere else or some interview from a big publication. No, 80 to 90% are just me talking to them for this book because I wanted it to be all these different things that haven't been talked about. So I talked about the DOC, like with It's Funky Enough and Nothing But a G Thing. They both start one, and then comes the 2 to the 3 and 4. So I asked
Mhm.
him because he had a part. One is his song, and one is Dre and Snoop Dogg. But I knew he
Right.
wrote on Nothing But a G Thing. So I asked him about that. And that's something just I thought was interesting and people hadn't talked about. So
Mhm.
that's in the book. But I got that directly from DOC. That wasn't like, in 2000, DOC reflected to the Washington Post about no, I talked to him. So, and then I had Exhibit write the forward. Thankfully, Exhibit's a friend of mine. And
Right.
of course, in the mid 90s, and then as we get into the late 90s and early 2000s, Exhibit was key on a lot of these records, either appearing on them, writing
Mhm.
on them, being on singles, working with the biggest artists. So he did the forward for me, which was a beautiful thing. And
Right.
then, RBX did the voiceover for me for the commercial. I interviewed him for the book. And then Ice-T, MC Ren, Schoolie D, all these
Mm.
dudes. Dr. Dre gave me a quote to use in the promotions, which I did. So it was beautiful that me as a kid, this is like the type of thing I dreamt of. I dreamt of
Right.
talking to these artists, becoming friends with them, and I have now with a lot of them. And then the fact that, Ice Cube signed off on being on the cover. Ice-T signed off on
Mm.
being on the cover. Snoop Dogg signed off on being on the cover. Uh,
Damn.
as you can see, Ice-T, I got Ice-T,
Crazy.
Exhibit, the DOC, Big Les. So it's like these people that I admired and looked up to as a kid,
Mhm.
and now have become friends with and help me and support me. So that's
Right.
like a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. How is the book doing so far?
It's done very well, and it's in 4 different languages now. You can get it in Russian, you can get it
Uh-huh.
in Italian, you can get it in Japanese and Spanish.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
Are there
it's out there.
with the success of it and the trail that is blazed as far as on the literary side, is there anything in the works, maybe even in the future, to maybe do a second part to it?
Well, right now we're in talks to try to get it to do a documentary or a series
I was
about
just
it.
about to ask.
Mhm.
So that's the next step of the goal. And
Mhm.
then if that generates some additional excitement or helps the sales down the line, maybe
Mhm.
it will just be an enhanced version where I added 20 pages or something with new stuff, and then stuff that either I didn't have space for or I didn't get the artist in time. Because there's a couple things I would like to add to the book, but they're minor, but I would like to add them,
Right.
because I have, for those that haven't seen the book, definitely get it, but I did all these sidebars. So it's like all the rap related movies in 91. So I talk about, by the end of 91, because that's where we have New Jack City and Boys in the Hood come out in 91. So I wanted to show the progression and the evolution of all these films. And then we have these gangster films that really explode with rap in film. So you have like Wild Style, Breaking, Crush Groove, House Party, New Jack City, and then Boys in the Hood. So I do a little thing of where they were shot, their budget, box office, and then Rotten Tomatoes. So I have all those types of sidebars, throughout the history of gangster rap. I did like the Up in Smoke tour. I was able to go to a couple of them.
Yeah.
In different parts of the country. But I also talked about like the albums that were out by the headliners during the tour. So, I talk about a lot of different things that, from 1985 with Schoolie D, and I touch on stuff that inspired him and came before, all the way up to the book came out in 2018, so around 2017. So I talk about the Vince Staples, the Nipsey Hussles, the G Pericos, the YGs, the different artists that were, in 2017-ish, bubbling, percolating, or rising.
It's funny, just being around the industry and like your favorite artists, you think they fade into obscurity, and then you follow the new generation. And for me, it's like I can see a lot of my favorite artists and a lot of the newer artists and today's artists that become my favorite artists. You know what I mean? I was a big DJ Quick fan. What got my attention with G Perico, he reminded me sound-wise. It was the, where he was from, the look, everything. He reminded me of Quick. Then I became, a person that became a big fan of his. So it's kind of like, for me, I'm glad to see that continue on, because sometimes the media make you think that, this particular genre, this particular style is done forever. It's in the dirt, you know what I mean? And that's not always the case, so it's always good to see that come back around. There you go, my man.
So I got G Perico in the book.
My man, big fan, man. Shouts out to him, DJ Quick.
Big Trey D right next to him.
Oh, man. Yeah, he always stays solid too, man. But I'm glad you definitely put this book together, man, because for super fans like myself, it's a good read. It really is.
Thank you.
I like the shirt too, man. Where can we get the shirt?
Well, the shirt, everybody should head to slangsmith.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
We couldn't make these shirts. They just made a couple for me to wear because of the licensing for the cover.
Oh, okay.
But Slangsmith made the shirts, and they got a lot of great shirts. They did a collaboration with Dana Dane. So they got a Dana Dane shirt that's really good. And they also did a collaboration with me for Unique Access Entertainment, my YouTube channel. And they got a lot of other great shirts with JVC Force.
Okay.
Another great group, and a lot of other great shirts. So just go to slangsmith.com. They got a lot of great stuff.
Gotcha. All right.
Like
it
that.
is. It's definitely. I definitely need to get my hands on a few of those too.
That's personal use right there. I see Soren Baker written all in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I ain't mad at him. I'm not mad at him at all. Okay, so we've got book number 1 out. We see where it's heading. It's doing very well. It's full of facts, shining light on a lot of things that need to be addressed that aren't always addressed in the mainstream media, even the portion of mainstream media that covers hip hop. Talk to me about book number 2, beginning with the title.
Well, The Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness. So this is my newest book. This one just came out. It's available in stores worldwide. I did this one with Gucci Mane. So basically, with that, the history of gangster rap opened a lot of doors for me. And when the idea for The Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness came out, they had said, they're looking for a writer and we want you to do it, but you need to give them an idea of how you would kind of, take his slogans and what he lives by and make that into a book. So I knew I've been listening to Gucci since 2005-ish. So I've been following him, liking him. And I was supposed to do a big project with him before one time. but that was during his time when he was going in and out of the
Right.
system. So that didn't work out. But this one did, thankfully, because the main point of the book is how you can change your life and become great, regardless of where you come from, whether you're
Right.
the poorest person with very limited resources or you have a lot of resources. It's all about his guide to greatness in his mind and his ways that he's changed his life from, being somebody that was chaotic to doing this. So
Right.
like a lot of photos, but then nobody cares, work harder. So we talk about why that's important to him, where he got that idea, work in silence. So it's all these different things, kind of the things that Gucci lives by, that enabled him to turn his life around. Protect yourself at all times. So what we did in the book, I went through his social media, picked out some of the ones I thought were particularly interesting or intriguing, and then we talked about them, and that led us to talk about different things that maybe he learned from his dad, or maybe he heard along the way. And then we explained those stories. So thankfully, that book has been phenomenally received. I get, I'm not Gucci Mane, but I'm getting hit up 2 or 3 times a day. Even still, it's been a few months, so I can only imagine, the response he's gotten. But I'm getting hit up like, hey man, this is a great book. People posting it on their Instagram story, people posting it on their feed, Twitter, Clubhouse. There's been a few people that have hit me off of Clubhouse where they're just reading the book in Clubhouse. I got to jump in one, which was kind of crazy. But the point is, the book to me is really kind of to this point of, here we have a guy that totally changed his life. If we want to look at a political, social figure, we go from a Malcolm Little to a Malcolm X to a El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, a total transformation of someone's life.
Right.
Gucci was the same thing in the way of, he was a drug dealer, drug addict, obese, a criminal, and now he's totally changed his life. Now he's ripped, he's married, he's like not getting into trouble. He's totally changed his life, and that started like Malcolm X. It started with him while he was incarcerated, taking a kind of stock of his life, and like, what am I doing? How can I change? Like, I have all these opportunities and I'm squandering them. And that's where this book, The Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness, comes from. Like, he transformed his life. And I got to find the page, because this is always one of the best stories. But, it's like the haters are going to say you were cloned, because the thing about it is, when people, it's easy to like look at the results, but it's hard to look at the process. And that's something that we talk about, because it's easy. I mean, look at him compared to what he used to look like.
Right. Exactly.
It's a huge difference. But the haters are going to say you were a clone because they don't think it's possible to lose 100 pounds. They don't think it's possible to get off drugs. They don't think it's possible to turn your life around, to be a better person. But he did it. And that to me is why the book is so powerful, because Gucci shows the steps that he took to change his life and how you can apply that to you, whether you're a barber, whether you're a school teacher, whether you're an accountant, or whether you're an aspiring rapper. It doesn't matter what you do or who you are. It's like all these steps to make your life better and to make yourself better. And, it's, to me, it's amazing. And that's why when I did my proposal, I was so excited. And then Gucci read it. People at Simon & Schuster, Stuart Roberts read it, and my book agent read it. And they were all like, man, this is great. And Gucci was like, yo, let's go. So, I was very blessed and fortunate to have that opportunity as well. My book agent, Robert, connected me with that. And, it's just a beautiful thing, man.
Understood, man. Understood. That one I haven't had a chance to get into, but I'm definitely going to crack that cover soon and just, binge out and get into it and see what's going on with it. Now, talk to us briefly about Unique Access. Give us the breakdown on exactly what's going on, what it is, who's involved, etc.
Well, Unique Access Entertainment, please go there on YouTube and subscribe if you haven't already. But that's the platform that I do, where I interview a lot of artists, and I have different shows. Mainly, we're doing a lot of interviews right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have a section where I do best albums, where the artists talk about their favorite albums. Glasses Malone and I just did Easy Does It by Easy E, for instance. So we just do an interview where I interview Glasses about why that album means so much to him.
Right.
And like Big Trey D and I did Paid in Full by Eric B. and Rakim. Dana and I did The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. And then the great thing about it is, because I know a lot of the artists and I know what they like Scarface and I did A Tribe Called Quest, People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. So
killing me right now.
We did it that way because it's like I told Face was like, oh, I want to do either Tribe or I want to do Ice Cube. I said, people might expect Ice Cube. Let's do Tribe.
Right.
And, that ended up working out well because people didn't really expect that from Scarface.
Right.
And that's the thing that gets back to me knowing and loving the music and wanting to bring out these little wrinkles of it. So that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm going to be launching a few other little segments in the near future. And then, I got a lot of people that help me with the channel. Dana Dane helps me a lot with bringing up, connecting me with some of his friends from back in the day, which is huge. And he does some editing for me as well. My friend James Kreisberg, my friend Ak. So I got, my friends help me with it. And it's just, keeps growing into something bigger and bigger all the time. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. So that's good. We've got almost 6 million views. So that's really good. And I'm just doing interviews about the artists I like and I care for and that I think are great. And we keep getting, amazing artists. So, I've interviewed MC Ren for it. I've interviewed Dana Dane for it. Kwame. I've just got so many different artists that, I got Jay Prince on the executive side from Rap A Lot. I got Scarface. So I interview artists from all over the country.
Right.
Which is very exciting because for whatever reason, when I grew up listening to rap from everywhere and I love it basically equally. Yep. It's funny. I'm friends with Chino XL and Chino is not a gangster rapper, clearly, but he's known me since I've been in college. And I got to shout Chino because on Here to Save You All, he's the first person to thank me on one of his albums. So we were I remember if we were DMing or texting one day, but I was just telling him, I was like, it's funny, man, you know me, but like the people that don't know me think I only listen to gangster rap, or that's all I care about because of the history of gangster rap. So I said, now it's funny with Gucci Mane, people are like, oh man, he loves the South. Well, I've been writing about the South since I got in the game. I love, like, since basically 94, 95. So it's just funny as time goes on, as people discover my work or get to know me a little better, they tend to be surprised that I interview or cover artists from all over the country, but I love them all. I just love rap.
Yes.
I have things I like more and less, of course, but rap is what I love.
Right. Understood. My last question is a simple one. Does Unique Access provide a type of platform as, say, a Black Effect podcast, or is they're just an entity unto themselves doing what they do? Like for other podcasts to maybe come up under, or is that more Dish Soap that would handle that per se?
Oh, well, no. I mean, I'm always interested in expanding and doing that type of thing. It's just got to be, as you know, as a businessman, it's just all got to make sense.
Right.
So I'm open to that. And I think hopefully we will become a destination for not only upstreaming our content onto, networks or streaming platforms, or bringing in other content creators underneath us.
Right.
I'm definitely open to all that, and I understand the value and the significance of it.
Right. Okay. But with that being said, now, would you be looking for, and I get this question, and we're just up and coming ourselves, and I have people hit me about this a few times a week, and we're just doing basic. We don't have a platform behind us right now. But I have people ask me a couple of times a week, what is it that I would be looking for other than quote unquote numbers? Because you have a lot of people who have podcasts these days, but a lot of them have access to certain artists, certain entities with, in the business, but they're building. They're in the process of building. So for you, would it be a personality that you may have seen if the numbers weren't there? Would it be the content that's already been recorded that's available on YouTube? Would you feel comfortable getting behind something, an engine that's just starting per se, if you saw the potential in it long term?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Be interested in it, because the thing is, we all got to start from somewhere.
Right.
Not everybody walks in the door. I didn't walk in the door through any of my family connections. I had to build it myself.
Exactly.
So I understand that that's most people. That's the way they are. But what I look for when people tell me, "Oh, I want to write," or "I want to do what you do," I said the two main things you got to do is read a lot and write a lot.
Yep.
And if you don't read a lot, you're hurting yourself. And if you don't write a lot, you're hurting yourself. If you want to be a writer, you got to write.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a writer, you got to read.
Right.
So, the thing is, I was fortunate when I grew up that rap was young, and I didn't have, I still don't clearly know everything about rap, but I didn't have as much now as people have to catch up on. I had a few years.
Right. Right.
Whereas
Exactly.
people now got 40 years,
Right.
But that's the whole thing, man. You got to you got to be in it to win it, man. You got to be in it because you love it, like I do. Like I literally listen to rap 95% of the time, and the other 5% is probably go-go or, a little bit of whatever I happen to come across. But I listen to rap. That's what I do. I don't, I think that's something like, if you're dedicated to something, you have to really be dedicated to it.
Right.
We talk about this in the Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness. The Gucci likes the author Malcolm Gladwell, and he had that thing about the 10,000 hours to become a master of something.
Right.
But it's the same thing with listening to something. You can't have listened to rap for like 3 albums and all of a sudden that's what you want to do. You got to like really get into it. And whether you like Lil Uzi Vert or Yo Gotti or Slick Rick, it doesn't matter. You can't just, I'm a Lil Uzi Vert fan, so I love rap. No, you like Lil Uzi Vert. That's
right.
That's who you like.
Right. You got to live this. You got to live it.
That's a different, and that might be fine. You could have a career being a Lil Uzi Vert fan. That's possible. But if you're trying to create a network or a podcast or something, you got to really be able to bring something to the table. Your fandom of one artist or one thing is great, but one of the things about the history of gangster rap that I talk about in the book is like, these are well-rounded men and women that have created this music. They don't only think about gangster stuff or gangbanging. Their parents, their sons, their daughters, they have kids, they have books they like. Like I had DJ Quick review not all of, 15 or however many of Ice Cube's movies in a couple words. So it's like, we forget, like, these are not caricatures, these are humans. So like DJ Quick watches movies. So, okay, Quick, what do you think about Ice Cube's movies? So we did that. But that's the type of thing you gotta like realize that this is not, it's not double dutch. You can't just hop in and hop out. It's all good. Like if you're gonna do it, you got to really be in it.
Yep, and that's true. Okay. Well, we appreciate your time, sir. Jill, you got any questions for Mr. Baker?
Every time I thought of a question to ask him, it got answered. Like I was gonna ask him, what would he say to a aspiring writer or a journalist who wanted to, explore their chances in the field, and he answered it. I think it was, I don't have anything to say, man, except, I like the shirt. I need one of them, So
Trust me.
What was the name again of the company, man?
Slangsmith.com.
Definitely.
I need some more of these because, I wear them.
Yeah.
And since I'm actually wearing them, I got to wash them and stuff, but
do they got like a hoodie like that too? You have a hoodie?
Nah.
But yeah, see, I just like how they put it together. And is that their logo in the middle of your name?
Yep. Definitely go to slangsmith.com. They got a lot of great gear.
All right. Well, Soren, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Anything we can do on this end, any information you want to shoot to us, things you want us to put out? out. We're growing. The seeds are planted with us, and we just look at our format as well down the road. We thank you for your time. Give us the titles of the books one more time and let us know where we can get them.
Yeah, The History of Gangster Rap and The Gucci Man Guide to Greatness. They're available worldwide. You can get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you guys buy your books. Independent retailers have them as well. And then, of course, you can just order them from wherever you buy your books. And then follow me. It's just my name on all platforms at Soren Baker, SORENBAKER. And then please be sure to subscribe and follow me on Unique Access Entertainment, UNIQUEACCESSENT. And please subscribe to that on YouTube. You guys will see a lot of interviews. I got a big one dropping soon, and then I got a few big ones that are coming up that I'm very excited about. As well as yeah, well, they're on the way. But I got more than 600 interviews up there, so get into it, man.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for your time on Musiq Matisse, along with First Fam Chills, First Fam Radio. This is the SMG Solo Music Group Podcast in studio. I'd like to thank our guest for this week, Mr. Soren Baker. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.